There's always a better way to do what you're doing right now. So be grateful. Now they're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to do, right? And I was like, no, programmatic is where my heart is. Amen. Welcome to a special episode of the Programmatic Digest podcast. I have also a special guest, and I know I say that with every episode, but this is the truth about this one. Brett Middleton is joining us on a special series called the Programmatic Wellbeing Series. And so, Brett, thank you for coming to join us on this episode today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I actually am very excited because this is a 4-series or 5 episode series, and we're going to really focus on the well-being of programmatic traders, how to really talk about the real challenges, talk about like what automation means for us, talk about like the success of running a department, everything that they will need to know at any level of their career. So I really appreciate you being here. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. Hopefully we can get into it all in 4 or 5 episodes. And
you're right. We can have you back. It's cool. Before we talk about the very first, I'm going to say installment of this series about programmatic challenges, let's have you introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. Okay. So again, my name is Brett Middleton. I have been in media for about 8 years or so now. I work at Canvas Worldwide out of LA as the Associate Director of Programmatic, working on Stars Entertainment, which is an awesome client that I love. I'm very blessed in that when you have a client that you like, or even that you're interested in, it does make the work easier.
That is like super cool. What are the shows again that you worked on? Or are you allowed to tell us?
Yeah. Okay. I just can't. I won't talk specifics. I can't give away all the wonderful things.
The magic.
Okay. But yeah, any of the power titles. So Force, Ghost, the original. Like I joined the team back in January of 2022. So campaigns over the last year or so. If you've been served with a programmatic ad or something through YouTube, I'm sorry. But I can't help it. They're good shows, and we've got Party Down season 3 coming up that I'm super excited about. If you haven't seen Party Down, I recommend it. Adam Scott was one of the leads in it. Jane Lynch was also in the cast back in the day. I think she's coming back. Yeah, she is. It's a fun show. It's a comedy about these like waiter caterers in LA who were trying to make it.
That's really cool. Well, it seems like you're having a lot of fun because like the way you're talking about it, how passionate you are. So tell us a little bit about like how you got into programmatic. Like how did that, did you wake up one day, or growing up you were like, I'm going to be a programmatic media trader or expert?
That is how you would think it goes, but no.
Right?
Yeah, no, really, I was at an agency where I think like a lot of people, I worked on 1 or 2 clients, and any of the media that came up that you had to buy, you just buy it. Like I would run paid social and search, and it started out with like some display in YouTube, but that became programmatic media that I started investing in over several DSPs and several years, and just sort of ended up where I am. Like honestly, it's I think that's just part of a career in media, is that we often have an idea of how we think our careers are going to go, but you really have no idea.
You have no idea. You can only control how you feel about it. Yeah. That is really cool. That's really cool. That's most of my experience have been agency. So that's how I gained all of my programmatic media trading experience.
I've never worked as part of an in-house brand programmatic team. I'm curious to see how that is for people, but I was in the agency side when I've been in programmatic. I have been
Mhm,
I have been part of a brand side or media team, but not in
mhm.
programmatic.
So I've worked for a pretty large agency that only had me on one brand.
Mhm.
So it's still agency side, but it was only that one brand. And that's also, I feel, a very, very different perspective. And that was fun because you get to really got up close and personal with that brand, but it was a lot of work because the brand was obviously a fairly large brand. So there was like multi strategies within the DSP, within like search and social. So it was a lot, but it was kind of fun. It's a different perspective for sure.
Yeah, I know what you mean. What's funny is that like this whole episode is about sort of the
Mhm,
challenges of working
mhm.
on programmatic and things that people can look out for and work through. And a lot of it, what's funny is that I feel like what we're talking about right now could very easily fit into that whole situation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of challenges in programmatic, honestly. It's a tough field to learn and get really adept at. Also, people don't understand what we do.
No, I like for real, like they don't. Okay. No matter how many times I tell my dad, he's still like, yo, what is you doing, sis? What
Yeah.
is you doing?
I mean, a
Um,
lot of people can't explain their careers to their parents, but like I can't explain my career to or like the ins and outs of what I do
mhm.
to people in media often.
Yeah. Yeah, obviously. And I think it's a good segue into this one question I like to ask all guests is to define your day-to-day to a 5-year-old. So to you, I would say define being a programmatic trader to my 5-year-old niece.
Well, I do have a 6-year-old. I can
Define it to the 6-year-old then.
I can
That's
relate to this. I work for people that make a TV show and they
Mhm.
want to find people that will like that TV show. And I have to figure out who those people are and put something on their screen to show, you know. It's, it's a very cool
That's
job.
funny. That's a good way to put it. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah. My daughter would
So
say people search up things on the
yeah.
internet. And then then they see things on the internet.
So
My
I'm
daughter loves
gonna
YouTube. I can tell her that I run ads on YouTube and she'll get excited.
well, yeah, like kids nowadays, I feel like are really advanced compared like me as a 6-year-old. Obviously we didn't have YouTube like that too. That's probably why. But I feel like if you're explaining certain, like use certain terms, they'll be able to capture and comprehend fairly fast. So I'm gonna challenge you to go ahead and talk to her, I think you said, and see her reaction, and then come back and tell us if she was
Yeah.
okay and confident after that conversation.
Yeah.
So let's get into
No,
today's
what's funny is
conversation.
well, what's funny is that like I
Yeah.
she'll be on YouTube and
Uh-huh.
I'll mention that daddy works on ads in YouTube and she knows what ads are and she's
Yeah.
like already frustrated by them, you know. So,
This is so funny because I have a almost 3-year-old, and when we watch YouTube, she gets upset when a commercial comes in between her content. And I know some people would be like, "Oh, there's YouTube Kids," but ideally, it's not as YouTube Kids is not as it doesn't allow us to really control the content that we want. At least I haven't figured out a good, sauce for it. And secondly, since my first language is French, it's important that she consumes as much French as possible, and YouTube is great. So all the French or African-based content that I can find are not on YouTube Kids; they're on the regular YouTube. So
yeah.
she's always like, "Ugh," and I'm like, "Dang kid, we ruined you." We really
Oh.
with her, but anyway, it's okay. She'll survive eventually. But anyway, talking about that though, I do want to get into today's conversation, which is really exciting. It's basically what you said. The challenges from a programmatic trader. What are the what are the challenges from a programmatic trader? Let's talk about first, like how it's hard to actually learn programmatic, like the limiting access that we have to education, which is actually one of the reasons why I do what I do today. But I do want to ask you for your perspective. What's like your top 3 to 4 point of view when it comes to like some of the challenges we go through?
Mm. Yeah. Sort of the limited access that people have to learning programmatic, how difficult
Mm-hmm.
the entry into the field is. That's one of the concerns that I have
Yeah.
because as someone who is trying to hire people very selfishly, weirdly, I would like the people that I hired in
Mhm.
programmatic to have been able to have seen a programmatic DSP before, which is
Yeah.
like a very strange thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's normal.
It
Like
seems
this,
like,
it's less work
yeah,
for you, right? Like
yeah,
why do you think you would rather have somebody with experience? I mean,
you
there's no
know,
judgment here. And
yeah.
I'm saying this
Well,
because somebody's gonna hear it and they're gonna be like, oh, this is why, and that's gonna educate or help them too.
I'll throw you a curveball here though, and it's not even necessarily that like I, as a hiring person manager in
Mhm.
programmatic, like I care greatly about the amount of experience that you have in programmatic, but I'm more frustrated that someone who wants to learn, programmatic has such a hard time figuring that out. Like, if I want
Yeah.
to learn how to run campaigns in DV360, right? You're pretty much completely out of luck unless you go through, training courses.
Yeah.
You get a job at an agency where they have access to DV360, and not only do they have DV360, but there's a program in place to train people who are not versed in it.
Mhm.
And there's someone who's sort of holding the
Yeah.
keys to the access to make sure that people are getting into DV360 and learning it.
Mhm.
Um, it feels really silly to me that Google doesn't want to allow like training access to an advertiser account where there's no ability to buy media.
Yeah.
Agencies could take that on if Google's not willing to do it. I do think that agencies who run programmatic media or even any kind of media in general that's paid media should be more willing to have people, to sort of create training environments where people
Mhm.
who are not necessarily employees, you know, vet them out if they're a student, if they want to learn media, create just a little
Yeah.
program where people are able to within DV360, you can grant access to a specific advertiser limit
Yeah.
setup that people have. Like there's a lot of creative things that I think agencies could do to give people opportunities. Now,
Like,
as
mhm.
part of this, like this is a big part of why, like, I'm working at Canvas, but I am also working on a passion project where I'm creating this website called the tentative site is called the Daily Progrer, like short for programmatic. And I want to talk about some of the negatives of programmatic media and share tips and let people
Yeah.
ask questions. And
Mhm.
one of my goals is to eventually have some like accessible DSP accounts where people can request access, and I'll give them to them so they can go in and just poke around and learn.
That's great because I love that perspective because it's not only Google. I mean, it's hard to get access to the trade desk. It's hard to get access to like basis. It's hard to get access to Simplify. And I've reached out to some of the not only mentioned, but like to a bunch of TSPs asking them like, I have the program. I know, and I created this program because just like you, I was so frustrated of being a hiring manager 2, 3 years ago and not being able to find anything. Like literally, I remember every single person that was part of my team, whether I was a manager or not at that time,
Mhm.
training them to some capacity. And because even if they have seen a DSP, there is still so much to learn. So can you only imagine how not knowing what the F is programmatic, how to get in? And that's what my whole program is about. It's like introducing those people that are not only college students, but like career pivoters. Like they work in marketing and they want to learn something new, or they want to find a really challenging job, or they want to work on account at stars, right? Like they don't know how to tap in because they don't even know where to get this education. So the program is basically like very fundamentals, but at the end of it, they're confident, comfortable enough, and they're consistent on how they see programmatic and the industry.
Mhm.
And that includes hands-on DSP experience like the trade desk, because then one of my investors gave us access to the trade desk for that reason. And they're an agency. And so they also tap in on some of those, right?
That's nice.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you. I love that. As soon as you have those those access, I already want to partner. And I'm not afraid to say it on this podcast because this is a serious problem. Okay. And I know there are some DSPs that are probably going to listen like, yeah, this is free. You can sign up anytime. Well, yes, help us make it more efficient for us. There's a lot going on. So help us make it more efficient, help us really market this to the consumer base. And I'll end with this, is that people that are in this program that we launched are historically excluded. So they either look like me, they sound like me, they can relate to my background, second immigrant, you name it. Like, it's like second generation immigrant, excuse me. So it's just like, we really are trying to not only diversify, but really make it accessible to learn. And the program is now free, because anything that's free is not taken seriously. And I've learned the hard way. So the people that are currently in the program, those are the people that could benefit from content like you are an expert working right now. You have your journey, you're sharing it on your website, which will be all in the show notes, by the way, guys. It'll be in the show descriptions. It'll be in the newsletter if you're on our newsletter. So don't worry and Brett's information will also be there, so you can keep in touch with him. But I'll end with this. It's just like, it's important. And let's talk about why is it so hard to access education, right? Yeah. Why does it feel like a lonely island sometimes? Because like it becomes very isolated. So why do you think this even happens? Because I have my opinion, but I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, I would say I'm going to try to answer this without any kind of complaining. Okay, so
let's go. I believe in you.
Programmatic media is hard to understand. I think a lot of people have a hard time grasping, like if you're part of a big agency, like I am. I work on a team on a team where I have my partners in strategy, investment, whatever they're called at your agency, where they're guiding really the overall media picture, and programmatic fits in as part of that. That structure is very amorphous, right? It's like us as programmatic experts are asked to take a piece of the overall strategy that we've been given and figure out how that works in there.
Yeah.
And I often feel like we have to sell really right as part of that, like, because people don't necessarily understand the ins and out of what we're doing. And a lot of times people are a little bit confused about how programmatic and direct, like digital media, should work together. There's not like as clear of a structure and a flow as there is when someone's working in like paid search, where it's very simplistic. People are searching for keywords and it's triggering what the search ads.
Yeah.
There's just a lot more about programmatic that leaves us up to receiving questions. And my personal experience has been that programmatic just kind of gets its little space, and it's not sexy. No one really pays attention to programmatic, unless we make mistakes. Yeah. And so that is a lonely environment.
Before we talk about like what makes a programmatic trader or programmatic media buying successful, let's pause right there. Let's really highlight what you said. It's exactly it. Because of the amount of technology, because of the amount of, I think it's because of the amount of targeting capabilities that we have access to, the amount of inventory, the amount of like data, it makes us more exciting and complex to work in the field of programmatic. It's not impossible. So don't get scared if you're just like, if you're in the rich and frequency program right now and you're listening to this and you're like, what the fuck did I just sign up to? Hang tight. It's not as scary as it sounds. It's not, no. But it can feel very isolated. Why? It's because that is how the industry has molded the programmatic department to be. And let me explain. And some people are not going to agree, but I don't care. This is exactly how I feel because I've lived it. Every single place I've worked with, so it's going to be very personal, but it's going to make sense from a general perspective. Every single places I've worked with had their own, this is our strategy. It's the $1 million secret sauce. Nobody else should hear about it. But yet, every single agencies I work with that use DV360, I'm like, y'all sharing the secret sauce because it's the same everywhere, right? But for that company, it's proprietary. It's like one of the kind. It's like unique. It's like we thought about it first. And I'm like, maybe you thought about it first, but the reality is that everybody else that uses DV360 are more likely to buy on YouTube or vice versa. So the reality is that because we think that programmatic is such like a special strategy and sometimes it's just stupid how it's really not. Just like search, we bid the same way almost. Like just all of those DSP may have proprietary something, right? They may have some uniqueness, like co-op to Trade Desk or DV360 and CM360 and compatibility with other Google products. But the buy still happens the same. Maybe it's not the same inventory, but there's nothing really magical about certain things. Now, the magic can happen in certain strategy depending on your client, like how you're managing your campaign in stores and you go in an auto world might be different. And you might find that special secret sauce. I agree with that on a campaign basis. But it's crazy how I've worked with companies and they make you sign those long ass contracts that say, you're not allowed to work with our clients, or you're not allowed to share any intimate information. But that's how I learned. And I'm going to take what I learned to be successful again. So I'm not going to tell you how much this campaign spent or all the those information, the sensitive information. But if something worked for that account and I'm at a new job and there's a similar account, you best believe I'm going to use the same strategy. So there's nothing as unique as we think, right? So that is why most of those DSPs training are still like only access for clients, right? Or if it's free training, it's just the fundamentals. And all of those trainings, I've taken a lot of them for many DSPs over the years, and all of them are not as unique as we think. It's like almost the same information. It's just very tech related. So they forget the user, they forget us. It's almost like this is how great this technology is. But then we, the traders, are using this technology. Like you forget to put us into that perspective. And so it's a real problem. It's annoying. So there's multiple things, right? In recaps, it's just like the fact that everything is so secretive. We think that we're the only one doing that. Most technologies say that they have some type of proprietary tactic that nobody else has. Maybe in some cases that's the case, but reality is that competition, like there's no monopoly unless you're well guarded. And even so, I don't think there's a real monopoly for you. And then secondly is like, we tell the trader that whatever you're doing, don't go out and talk about it because then you can't reveal our secret sauce. But there's no secret sauce. Let the trader go experience what something is out there so they can learn and bring back that knowledge. You know what I mean? So that's my perspective. Yeah. Hi, did you know that at Hélène Parker Consulting, we now offer an accelerator program where we attract, recruit, and train future marketers. And their training include a 6 weeks program where they cover programmatic landscape, important industry trends, the differences between targeting placement and targeting mix, and their best practices, including optimization and reporting hacks. And they're able to set up, manage, and monitor a demo campaign in the Trade Desk, everything including audience selection, inventory optimization, SPO, creative upload, brand safety, you name it. They're able to do it at the end of the 6 weeks program. So if you are part of the 90% of employers struggling to find a skilled candidate today and not willing to spend $14,900 on a bad hire, according to Zippia, give us a call. Let's discuss which one of our 5 to 10 juniors available every month is the perfect fit for your team. Clients who have hired our juniors have shared that we were able to help them save 1 to 2 months onboarding with those juniors. Give us a call right now and let's discuss the solution with you.
So I do think that there are pieces, there are always pieces of what we do that have to be sacred, right?
Always.
You never talk about budget, you talk about
sensitive information. I got you.
But there should be things that we should feel more comfortable sharing. And personally, I think that, and like there are going to be benefits in investing in like, tools and
Absolutely.
finding the best audience partners that you can use right over time, like building a book of partners that those are the people that you found the best performance with, and so you keep using them, like valuable things. But I do personally believe that because of how isolated programmatic feels, and just to tie the loop on why I think that programmatic is kind of like a lonely island, and not necessarily always from a bad, like it's not exclusively bad. Let me say that first too. Is that like, right? Like if you think about that media team, we sit within that, we develop a little strategy. It has to fit into the whole thing. People don't understand what we do, like I've previously said. Like you said, there isn't really a lot of magic to it. It feels magical. It's very much like a Wizard of Oz kind of situation, in my opinion, a lot of the time. I do think that the magic personally is in finding ways to not go crazy. To avoid burnout, like to make your job easier, to take I part of my prep for this, I was looking through Reddit, the program, like the programmatic subreddit, looking for complaints that people have in programmatic. Was like that's the thing that I do fairly often, just to see like what other things people are
talking about. What kind of questions are they asking?
I was seeing a lot of people complain about the fact that program it's such a silly thing, and I related to it at such a visceral level. If you're running like in programmatic, you can run $1 million campaign, a $5 or $6 million campaign, and have it underspend by $1,000 or overspend by $1,000 or $2,000, and people will say like, "What the hell were you doing?" Like, the amount of precision that's expected of us is kind of crazy.
No, like and I think it's a good segue into the next part, because in the preparation of this series, you and I had several conversations, and one of the things you said was like success means making no mistakes. Checking on your own mistake is very hard because, one, I think you don't have no damn time to do that. Okay. Most programmatic leads don't equip.
And we also we hate QAing other people's work too, because it's hard to QA someone else's work. I do personally feel that the human brain isn't really set up to go through and QA like in like a DSP. It's very difficult to retain all the information that you're trying to check against and go through and make sure that all these little details are correct.
Well, that is why I've learned, with working some of the traders, is that you're right. It's only hard to QA somebody else when there's not like a standard process. And that's the biggest thing. And that's what I say when people hear me say like the trader is not equipped to be successful. That's what I mean. Like you are expected, not you particularly, but you are expected to remember all those things by your brain. And I'm like, no, like I don't even remember what I got for breakfast. I'm gonna write it down. We're gonna create this checklist. It's not gonna be sexy. And then we're gonna go from there, and we're gonna adjust with different campaigns. But the way we the way we QA each other should be standard enough. It should be the same type of information we check every single campaigns plus some. So I think that's one of the things that's really, really unsexy for a trader, like the QA checklist, like the optimization, project management, because it forces us to step outside of the DSP and actually look at something else. But it's so important. It's really important to do that. And I know that we're going to talk about it next episode, on the next 2-3 episodes, like the importance of QAing. But I definitely share this sentiment. Like I hated queuing other people, even with a checklist, because I just thought that it was too much. Like I didn't have time, but it's important. It's important for your team. You have to do that for your team and for yourself.
I have tips that I will provide like in the next episode for sure. But it all ties into why programmatic can be so difficult. And I should also say that like, like I tentatively titled this "The Airing of Grievances" in one of my emails, in one of my like communications to you, right? Is that, but like everyone has complaints about their work. Let's just be real.
Yeah.
Programmatic can feel like it has more challenges.
Mhm.
But I think that's because we are relied upon in a way that I think a lot of people can't
We're
understand.
needed, we're indispensable. Yeah, I understand how you feel like, and I think it's a good way to almost wrap up the conversation because I know we've been almost bitching a lot in this whole episode, but in fairness, it's to it's to educate where are some of those the source of some of those challenges. But just know that it's still really exciting. And there's a reason why. Even though the big ad
Yes.
tech, I mean, even though the big tech companies have been laying off people, there's a reason why programmatic talent is still in need, right? Like when I talk to people and they're like, oh, we're not gonna hire, it's the recession. I'm like, just for you, I have 5 other emails to respond that need my people.
Yeah.
So it's just don't hear us complaining as if like, dang, I'm not trying to work with it. Every job, like Brett said, every job you're gonna go to, there's gonna be something dumb about it, right? But the
That,
number one reason, despite everything we just said, the number one reason why ad ops or ad tech or let's say programmatic ninjas don't stay working for the same company, it's bad leadership, period. There's nothing other than that. So despite the fact that you might feel isolated, despite the fact that you're asked to be perfect and to have all those gold medals and to have gone to the moon at least a few times in your lifetime, despite the fact that there's, in addition to having several technologies, there's several documents that you have to be in, like the precision and the orientation of details needs to be there. Despite all of it, if the work environment is terrible, toxic, unhealthy, that's one of the main reasons why people don't leave because they have too much work to do. They leave because their manager sucks and they don't feel appreciated. They feel overworked, sometimes overworked. They feel underpaid. They feel overwhelmed, and they're just tired and they leave. So just remember that, okay? And that's not only programmatic too. Actually, remember hearing it on somebody's podcast interview. I wish I remembered, but most ad ops people average 18 to 18 months, I think, at an agency or at a job because of that main reason. Like they don't feel motivated. The management is just not seeing them as what they are. They have no future. So just remember that there's a lot to complain, and we could complain about things all day long because there's so much things to talk about.
yeah, we didn't get to
Ultimately, it's a great field to work,
tenth of the complaints that you could really. But the
right?
thing that I like the way that we're wrapping this up, particularly because my intention with like the list of grievances that I sent over,
Yeah.
necessarily just to like let us like spill the tea and like complain. It's funny to me because what you said about a lot of the reasons that people leave jobs is really because of leadership and like the environment that gets created for people who work in programmatic or in ad ops or whatever field. What's funny to me is, or what's interesting to me is that a lot of these challenges were listed, right, are what I would call results of a lack of leadership in some cases, you could say, right? Like the agencies that we work for have a hard time creating an environment that
Yeah.
it's sustainable for a trader to work in. But the thing that I think is really interesting to me is that the job that I'm in right now at Canvas Worldwide is one of the and previously I was at Media Hub, which is part of IPG, and that was also a really good experience too. But I will say that for some reason something clicked for me like at Canvas where I don't think it had clicked for me before, is that these complaints that I have and these things that I've sort of seen in programmatic, and I don't think any of the things that we're talking about are going to feel like a surprise to most people who work in programmatic.
No, for sure not.
They they're really not like things that when you sit and think about them are going to destroy your ability to do your job, and they really feel to me like once you become aware of these challenges that you face in programmatic, they feel like opportunities for us to change our work habits. And for me, the biggest one that I latched onto was programmatic feels like it doesn't get a lot of attention unless we make mistakes.
Oh
And
yeah, for
so
sure.
a lot of what I have put my energy to now instead, where I would previously feel creatively frustrated, like I would put together new ideas and experiments and things and feel like they wouldn't go anywhere. I started to put more of that creative energy
Yeah.
into figuring out how I could make fewer mistakes
Uh-huh.
and feel like pride in that, right? Like if people are not bothering me, that means that I'm doing my job well. And I've started to just, enjoy
Embrace that. Embrace the peace, embrace the quiet, embrace the solitary, because I just wrote an article, and this is going to air in February, but back in January, I wrote an article about how I got started. I just talked briefly about my journey. And one of the main thing I say is that back in the days when I first got hired as a trader, one of the first thing that the trade desk was saying is that the trader's responsibility is optimization, whether it's automated or manual, right? And so you have no idea how many traders will come to me and say, I have no time of optimizing. Like sometimes I don't have the time to look at my campaign more than twice a month. And I'm like, what? And you don't have like nothing looking at it? That's so scary. Because like you said, because we are the expert in that technology, in that particular space, we're pulled in multiple directions for strategy, for sales, for internal presentation, right? Because like how many times have you gone a Slack from account manager? I have a quick question. Could you hop on a call? Or been pulled into like a client randomly? If you guys are not watching the YouTube video, you should see Brett's face on this one.
I have literally asked my supervisors and my team in the past,
Don't.
how do we I'm trying to build these campaigns. Can we stop with the questions in the meetings? But
Yeah, it's very frustrating. Like, how do you want me to be successful at not making a mistake if my time my time is not valued, right? It's a sacred time. And I remember at one of the agency that we worked with, we had like a no disturb, no matter what. And it was like, I think it was like the rule was like we could only use that 3 times a week, right? And it was like 2 hours and a half max of blocking your time. And every single trader used that. Every single trader used that. And there was like many rules, like not the whole department cannot go on do not disturb, for instance, things like that. So it would have to be rotating. But that worked really well, right? And so if you're hearing this and you're like, this is me, like reach out to Brett, reach out to me. There's ways we can help. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's why I have the community of the programmatic meetup, and we have a Slack channel. And those are the type of questions we always get, like, how do I get this done? What do you think about YouTube inventory banners versus like open web? Like both of them are sucky. Which one suck less? Things like that. But it's the importance of community. And it's been really hard to build this community because, like you said, it's isolated. We don't want to talk about it. We want to reveal too much. I receive so many DMs and I'm like, ask that in public so that other people can learn from you. You know what I mean?
programmatic
so I get it.
We don't talk about
Yeah, but you'll go on Twitter and like hashtag PPC chat. They talk about PPC stuff all the time, very specific to Google Ads sometimes, very specific to search. The Reddit channel, I actually I remember checking a handful of time. I should go back and really tap into that market. But
I'm pretty active in the programmatic subreddit. There's a lot of good conversation. That in particular, there people ask questions. My favorite questions that people ask in there are when people jump in and say things like, I'm feeling burnt out.
Yes.
What do you guys do to handle this? I've had a conversation about coming from programmatic. What are some other fields that I should be looking at? I also see people ask a lot, how do you like working at agencies versus brands versus like
that's good
publisher or DSP side? Like a lot. Those are fun conversations.
Yeah. And there's always, I love hearing the different perspectives because I had a handful of people within the community that worked for an agency and went for a brand, and they had very interesting things to share. And it's not always the best when you go to the brand side versus the agency side, right? But it's not as bad. So there's like several, I think that could be another series on its own.
What's funny, like the whole time we're going through this call, like everything we talked about, I'm like, well, we can talk about that as a whole episode. And it's like I also said, like, stop sending me meetings and questions and things like that, but
Mhm.
also at the same time, like
This is what we're here for.
I rely 100% on my strategy counterparts too to
Yeah.
keep me from falling in like a programmatic hole, right? And like just
Yeah.
sitting there at my keyboard.
Yeah. That's a good point. I think that's a good way to end this because all of the people that worked very closely within a team that I was part of or within my team that were programmatic ninjas like myself, we're still very good friends. Some of them have come to my wedding, to my baby showers, my bridal showers, to my bachelorette party. That's how close we still are over the years. And it goes to say that even though it does feel like an isolated island, you do can build not only partnership, but really great friendship with those people that share their struggle with you a little
Yeah.
bit. And that's a positive thing too, you know. How many times have I worked for like, especially in other departments, right? Especially in media and advertising, where you've heard other department complain about, I don't have no friends here. Everybody's like cutthroat, or everybody's like, it's my way or the highway, you know. And like sometimes as programmatic ninjas, we don't share that as much. At least not in my experience. Now somebody might be listening and be like, everybody's a bitch. No. Not everybody's perfect, but once in a while you do find those individuals that really inspire you, empower you as well. And so find your tribe. It's on Reddit, go on Reddit. Like I said, you can find a tribe that can really help uplift you a little bit. So
Yeah.
tell me, Brett, what is like 3 things you want everyone to remember from our conversation in this episode, before we go ahead and end this?
Great question. So programmatic is hard. Right?
Damn.
Programmatic is hard.
Yeah.
Programmatic is hard to learn, but
True.
it can be very rewarding
Mhm.
when you put in the effort. And
Yeah.
I think people should honestly be comforted by the fact that it's hard, because
Yeah.
a lot of people, I think no matter what your job is, you're going to run into points where you feel frustrated, you feel
That's
imposter
good.
syndrome. There are barriers to entry in every field,
Mhm.
especially once you bring in if questions of diversity and
Yeah.
ethnicity. Like it's media in particular is a very tricky situation, and I think it's changing a lot, which is
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah.
Um, it's it's honestly good that programmatic is hard, and it feels hard, because that should let you know that when you're feeling down, it's not because you suck, it's because our jobs are, you know, jobs are,
That's a good one. Yeah,
yes,
that's good. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
um, yeah,
You don't suck. It's just hard.
yeah,
That should be
honestly,
the episode of the title of the episode. It's
yeah,
just hard.
it's
I
not
love
you,
it.
it's programmatic.
Yeah, it's not you.
Yeah, so that's number one. Number
Yeah.
two is, I think once you make time and space for yourself to think about the particular challenges that you're facing
Mhm.
at, in your, because not everyone is going to have the exact same issues that are facing them in programmatic. A lot of us are going to feel that, like, have the same, if we use the same DSP, we have the same issues. Like anyone
Yeah.
who uses DV360 with me is probably, I don't know how many times I've gotten frustrated that I can't prioritize and tier audiences like I can in Trade Desk. But, we have little things like that that suck, right? But
Yeah.
there are great parts of our job that once you acknowledge the challenges and
Mhm.
deal with them, I think you can still have lots of fun in programmatic. And number three, there's always something that we should still be learning. And like I find myself, taking breaks after I
Mhm.
launch a big campaign, because I personally have a work style where I get a lot done in quick bursts and then I can relax a little
Wow.
bit.
Yeah.
And so I've started using those downtimes kind of like a shift, like I'm a firefighter, right?
Mhm.
Like when I'm building a campaign and I'm hustling, I go as fast as I can, and you
Yeah.
know, get the job done. But then I take the time to relax and enjoy what I just did. And
Unplug. Celebrate the wins.
yeah,
Celebrate the wins.
when
That's
you,
powerful. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I think this conversation was super, super productive. I think it's going to inspire and empower our listeners. And so again, if anyone has a question for you, want to find out more about the website or about the community that you're going to build with the content you're going to create, how can they do that?
Yeah, great question. People can always connect with me on LinkedIn, Brett Middleton. And thedailyprogger.com is going to be live at the time that these episodes are airing, unless, there's some sort of programmatic firestorm, which I don't know. It could be, who knows what's going to happen.
Regardless, all of Brett's information is going to be in the show notes and any description on all of our social posts. And if you don't remember his LinkedIn, you can always tap into our network and just ask us where the heck is Brett, and we'll point it to you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna try to make my website like as open as I can, right? And I honestly don't know everything that I'm gonna be adding into it. It's going to be sort of a living thing that I make as I learn more about what people are with in programmatic these days.
I think that's great. Like when you started talking, I was like, oh, I think I'm going to remove that, but I'm not even going to remove that because it shows authenticity. It shows that there's a lot going on, but we're going to go at it as it comes. And that no matter what, I strongly believe that every single voice on this planet needs to be heard. And yours certainly does. And I can guarantee that it's going to help a lot of people. And that's the whole point. It's to make sure that people hear more about what we do. And I don't even, now that I think about it, it's not even us complaining this episode, even though it does sound like I was bitching at least. But the reality is that I'm trying to be for real, like down to earth, real talk. This is what happened type of situation. And now at least some of it.
This is what's going on the streets here in the programmatic world.
Yeah. So cheers to you being authentic. Cheers to you being like having those real talk with us and really putting it out, because nobody wants to talk about, but we all feel the same. And then again, this is only the first episode of the series. So we'll see Brett next week.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.